In respect of the Unite race, Crispin, the first thing I would say is none of us think that the nominations are reflective of the votes that you get in a General Secretary election. If we thought that the nominations were reflective of the vote that you get in a General Secretary election, then there would be no debate right here now, because everybody would be looking at the nomination of Gerard Coyne and saying it's completely and utterly irrelevant because he's obviously bottom of the heap in respect of the nominations. The nominations obviously is a process, if you like, where those who are the gatekeepers of authority and power and influence in Unite have their opportunity to exert that. It's very much influenced by the apparatchik, very much influenced by officers, very much influenced by the status quo. And obviously, my campaign is not the status quo. It's something very different from that. But that's not to say that I in any way don't understand the worries that people have. We've all looked at the unison election. We all know what happened to the left vote in the unison election. And, I'm being brutally honest, Crispin, I've had sleepless nights in respect of this, and there's not many things that cause me to have sleepless nights, I can assure you. I tend to march on with things and tend to look on the optimistic side. But I know what is at stake here for the whole movement. What is at stake at this moment in time? Labour is moving to an existential crisis, which I'd like to come on to. And the only show in town is Unite. The only show in town in respect of standing up to this movement towards establishment politics is Unite. And that's why this election has been so important. And there are differences in respect of the candidates who describe themselves of the left. You've referenced it, obviously. Steve's position is that Labour is in an internal war and that should not be brought into Unite. Sharon's narrative is back to the workplace. And people know that my narrative is about Unite's role in society and the importance of that continuing, about the fact that we are this buttress against the establishment. And that's the reason why I put at the prominence of my campaign the demand for Unite TV, because mainstream media telling the story of collectivism has to finish. We have to start telling our own story. We have to start sharing our story, not just within our movement, but within wider society. And we have to start believing that if we tell the story of collectivism, if we tell the story of how working people can change their lives, if we tell the story of young people being abused in society the way they are, treated as nothing more than fodder, if we tell that story and give people a home to come to, we have to start believing that the trade union movement can win minds and hearts and arguments within society. We have to believe that the trade union movement can reignite 2017 and that young people will flock to us with a belief that collectivism is in fact the truth. Collectivism is socialism, that collectivism is love, and that love can change the world. And I believe that. I believe that if we get Unite TV and if we're out there telling our own story, that young people will flock to us. But Crispin, I don't know if you want to ask me more questions, but I really do. What I would say to people is, please have faith and trust right now that certainly I understand the importance of what we need to achieve right now. I understand the need for a transparent process in order to get there. I understand people's worries. I understand the role that Unite plays in society. I understand the role that I personally want to play in society. It's become of an inordinate importance to me to be a voice for those people who are struggling to have their voice heard. It's become an inordinate importance to be strong and firm and stand up against what I think is the brutality of the establishment, and that's both parties. It's become enormously important to me not to be silenced by mainstream media and to be constantly prepared to fight back and call it out for what it is. And I'm not going to stop doing that. I hope people understand that is not going to stop in any fashion whatsoever, because people's voices need to be heard, and we need to give confidence to people that we can find a new way of society working. Right. Right now my focus is on trying to find a transparent method of getting one candidate. Now, in order to find a methodology of getting one candidate, people have to be prepared to run the risk that is not them. And the reason why people have to be prepared to run that risk is that one candidate of the left, if you like, wins the Unite General Secretary election, and it's massively important that Unite remains of the left. The people do, within the strategies of an election, try to say Howard is just a politician within the trade union. That's not the case. I've led this union in respect of the most difficult of disputes: British Airways, INEOS, Waterford Crystal, Birmingham Bins, Vistian, Doncaster Stobarts, the list goes on in respect of that. It is the truth that I believe in the power of collectivism within the workplace, and I believe that can change society. The difference is that I think that now our revolution is modernization. For me, we have to start resourcing away from mainstream media. The union can afford to do it. The union has over £190 million in cash assets, over £500 million on its balance sheet. Now is the time for us to be ambitious and create our own media in order to be able to talk to the wider society. And I firmly am of the view that if we talk to the wider society of the successes that we have, Christian, during COVID, and, relevant to your previous debate, during COVID, in every single nation in the UK, the police tried to block lawful pickets outside a workplace. Our members being told that it was safe for them to be inside a workplace during COVID, but unsafe for them to have a lawful picket socially distanced outside of workplace. And in Westminster, in Holyrood, and in Stormont, we had to take each and every government to court in order to protect the right of picket during COVID. And we did so successfully. That's the type of role that Unite plays in society. But in reference to the Labour Party, and I do want to talk about this because whoever's writing to you to say, invite Steve on, invite Sharon on, they're quite right. They should be invited on. They should come on and they should talk about the wider Labour movement, because that is the role that the unions play in the wider Labour movement. The two things are integral. Politics is within the workplace. The reason for fire and rehire at the moment, the reason for 1% offered to the NHS, the reason for austerity, the reason for precarious work, the reason for youth being treated as nothing more than fodder is because of the politics of society. You cannot disconnect what's happening in the workplace to what is happening in the political arena. The debate about whether or not working class voices have to be heard in the political arena was had over 100 years ago. And the answer then is, of course, as the answer is now. But Labour Party is moving to an existential crisis. And I did want to come on, Christian, to talk about that. The Labour Party has upped the ante in respect of my own personal suspension. They've written to me clearly with an intent to try and move this towards an expulsion now. And over a tweet about Priti Patel, and let me be very clear in respect of this tweet about Priti Patel, because the left's slogan in respect of Theresa May was refugees can stay, deport May. The idea that we suddenly change our narrative because of skin colour is a dangerous attitude to take towards racism, and one that presumably the Conservatives have understood. Priti Patel is in charge of a racist agenda. My tweet was never meant to be taken literally, because of course we cannot and would not deport Priti Patel, because first of all, we cannot, because obviously she is not a migrant. But secondly, I don't approve of any deportations. My tweet was intended to draw a distinction between her treatment of the most vulnerable refugees in society from her position of privilege and power. And that's all I see with Priti Patel, a privileged, powerful individual carrying out a racist agenda. And there is no place in society for either her racist agenda or anybody else's racist agenda. And that's what the tweet said. Labour Party know that. And their decision to move further in respect of this is one that is stemmed through politics and stemmed through an attempt to try and stop my voice, and it won't work. And the reason why I wanted to talk today, Crispin, was to say to people that my position in respect of the Labour Party is now moving. I've often been on the programme and said that Keir Starmer's leadership is transient, and it is. Keir Starmer should be resigning right here and now. The reality is that his pledges that he gave to the electorate whenever he stood for leadership were nothing at all to do with a pledge, nothing to do with a promise whatsoever, all to do about positioning himself to get into power. And he's shown and proven that he is nothing more than an establishment figure, far too connected, as he showed in respect of the Chiz Bill, to security forces. And the agenda right here now is one of an existential crisis for the Labour Party. Yes, we have to lead ourselves now. We have to make sure that we go forward and talk for those people who cannot talk in society, but we have to fight back. And as we come out of COVID, Crispin, what I wanted to say to people here today is there has to be a left conference. Your show going on the road, I will do everything that I can to influence Unite to be sponsoring it, because it's vitally important. But we have to now fight back. There has to be a left conference. And I was of the view that that left conference had to be about re-establishing the importance of socialism and trade union within the Labour Party. It has to be much more now. It has to be about calling for Starmer to resign. This man has no place in the Labour Party, none whatsoever. Labour. He does not have socialism running through him. He is determined to change the Labour Party into a party of the establishment. He is determined to rid socialism from mainstream politics, and that is his agenda, loud and clear. We don't need to wait for more by-election losses to know that this man is unelectable. I'm not sure he even cares whether or not he is electable. We right here and now have to fight back. And coming out of COVID, we have to demand a better society, a more equal society, a better return for workers, a better return for young people. And it has to start by saying that Starmer has to be out. There has to be demonstrations outside Lotto, outside Southside. We have to now organise the conference in respect of what is our agenda. We have to call our own left conference. We have to have our own policies on the table, and central to those policies has to be that Keir Starmer is not a leader of Labour, has no place in Labour. He should be expelled himself for his failure in respect of calling out racism in LBC. He is no place as a Labour leader, and we have to mobilise right here and now and let all of society know that we reject him, we reject his leadership, or so-called leadership. We want Labour back for socialism, and we demand it immediately. Crispin, let me assure you, and if for anybody who's on here spying for Keir Starmer, let me assure him my voice is not going away, and it will be getting louder and louder, and it will be directed towards him.
It's not the Andrew Marr Show.